Hello guys, welcome to Percy and Goddess Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Percy and Naruto were rivals, chosen as champions by opposing gods? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Tempestuous Convergence. The sea churned beneath an unnaturally dark sky, white-capped waves slamming against the shore of Long Island Sound with increasing fury. Percy Jackson stood at the water's edge. His sea-green eyes narrowed as he studied the peculiar pattern of the currents. Something felt wrong, fundamentally wrong, in a way that resonated through his very being as a son of Poseidon. "This isn't a normal storm," he muttered, the wind carrying his words away almost before they left his lips. At 21, Percy had grown into his power and presence. Tall and athletic, with windswept black hair and features hardened by years of battle, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced down gods and titans alike. The casual observer might mistake him for a professional surfer or a marine biologist with a penchant for outdoor adventure, not the hero of Olympus who had turned down godhood twice. He extended his hand toward the water, feeling the familiar tug in his gut as he attempted to calm the waves. The sea resisted, which almost never happened. Percy frowned, concentrating harder. The nearest waves subsided momentarily before surging back with even greater force, nearly drenching his worn orange Camp Half-Blood t-shirt. "Okay, that's definitely not supposed to happen," he said, backing up a step. His hand instinctively moved to his pocket where Riptide, his celestial bronze sword disguised as a ballpoint pen, waited. Years of demigod life had taught him that unexplainable phenomena usually preceded something trying to kill him. "Percy," a familiar voice called from behind. He turned to see Annabeth Chase jogging toward him, her blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Their romantic relationship had ended amicably a year ago, but their friendship remained unbreakable. "You feel it too?" he asked as she reached him. Annabeth's stormy gray eyes studied the water with analytical precision. "Chiron sent me to find you. The magical barriers around camp are fluctuating, and Rachel just collapsed in the middle of delivering a prophecy." Percy's expression darkened. "What did she say?" "That's just it. It wasn't a prophecy, not really. She spoke in a language none of us recognized before passing out. It wasn't ancient Greek or Latin." Annabeth hugged herself against the strengthening wind. "But she did manage write one word in English before collapsing: convergence." Percy looked back at the rebellious sea. "I'm guessing that's not referring to a nice corporate merger. Chiron thinks something is happening with the boundaries between realms. Not just the mortal world and the godly one, but..." Annabeth hesitated. "But what?" "Something else entirely. Something outside our pantheon." Before Percy could respond, a blinding flash of lightning struck the water about 20 yards offshore. Instead of dissipating, the electricity seemed to pool and expand, creating a swirling vortex of light. The sea parted around it, forming an unnatural circular calm in the midst of the tempest. "That can't be good," Percy muttered, uncapping Riptide. The pen elongated into a 3-foot-long celestial bronze sword that glowed with a faint sea-green aura, an enhancement that had developed as Percy's powers matured. "Percy, wait," Annabeth called, but he was already advancing toward the water's edge. The vortex expanded, and within its center, a figure began to materialize, a young man approximately Percy's age with spiky blonde hair and facial markings that resembled whiskers. He wore what appeared to be a black and orange combat uniform unlike anything Percy had seen before, and a headband with a metal plate bearing a spiral leaf symbol. The stranger landed on the surface of the water, not in it, but on it, standing as though the tumultuous sea were solid ground. His bright blue eyes locked with Percy's green ones, confusion evident in his expression. "Who the hell are you?" the blonde demanded in perfect English, though something about his accent suggested it wasn't his native language. "And what kind of jutsu brought me here?" Percy raised Riptide defensively. "I was about to ask you the same thing, minus the jutsu part. This is Camp Half-Blood territory, and you're making my ocean act weird." "Your ocean?" The stranger's eyes narrowed. "Last I checked, I was tracking an anomalous chakra signature near Konoha. And then some kind of storm just He gestured vaguely around him. Percy, Annabeth whispered, having moved to his side despite his earlier charge forward. I don't think he's Greek or Roman. Look at how he's standing on water. That's not Neptune's domain. The blonde's keen ears caught her words. Neptune. You mean like the planet? His face scrunched in confusion before his eyes suddenly widened in alarm. He leapt backward just as a massive column of water erupted where he had been standing. The column twisted into the rough shape of a man's torso and head, features forming from the water itself. The liquid face bore a striking resemblance to Poseidon, but something was off, the expression too stern, the aura too foreign. Naruto Uzumaki, the water being intoned, its voice like waves crashing against cliffs. You have been chosen. The blonde, Naruto, landed on the water's surface again, his body language instantly shifting to a combat stance. Chosen for what? And how do you know my name? Another lightning bolt struck nearby, but this time it hit the beach itself. The electricity coalesced into a humanoid figure composed of crackling energy. Unlike the water being, this entity was clearly female, with delicate features formed from pure light. Perseus Jackson, the lightning woman spoke, her voice like distant thunder. You stand at the precipice of destiny once more. Percy kept Riptide leveled, dividing his attention between the strange visitor and the two elemental beings. Look, I've filled my destiny quota for one lifetime. If you're selling destiny, I'm not buying. The water and lightning beings moved closer to their respective champions. The boundaries weaken, the water entity stated. The old pacts falter, the lightning woman continued. Gods once separated now vie for dominance. They spoke in unison, their voices creating an unsettling harmony. Champions must be named. Champions must contend. Champions must determine the new order. Naruto crossed his arms. Yeah, I'm going to need more details than that cryptic nonsense. Who are you, and what's going on? The water being turned to him. I am Susanoo, god of storms and sea in the land you call home. The lightning woman addressed Percy. I speak for Poseidon, who cannot manifest fully in this moment of convergence. Percy's eyes widened. Dad sent you. Why couldn't he come himself? The pantheons are in flux, not quite Poseidon's messenger explained. Direct manifestation could shatter the fragile boundaries further. Pantheons, as in, multiple sets of gods. Naruto asked skeptically. Look, I've dealt with plenty of powerful beings, but this sounds like. The nine tails within you knows the truth, Susanoo interrupted. Ask it, if you doubt. Naruto's expression changed subtly, his eyes unfocusing as though listening to an internal voice. After a moment, he looked genuinely disturbed. Kurama says you're legitimate. That the dimensional walls are thinning. Percy glanced at Annabeth, who appeared to be processing information at lightning speed, her tactical mind analyzing every word and implication. This convergence, she interjected. It's bringing together different mythological realities, isn't it? Not just Greek and Roman, but entire other pantheons and their worlds. The messengers nodded in unison. And you've chosen us as what? Divine gladiators? Percy asked, anger seeping into his voice. I'm not fighting for anyone's entertainment. Not entertainment, Susanoo's avatar corrected. Necessity. When pantheons converge, champions must determine the new hierarchy, or chaos consumes all realities. So why him? Percy gestured toward Naruto with his sword. And why me? You each represent the best of your worlds. Poseidon's messenger explained. Heroes who have preserved the balance before. Naruto's posture had shifted slightly, becoming more contemplative despite remaining alert. Where I come from, we don't let gods dictate our actions. We forge our own paths. A philosophy Susanoo respects, the water being replied. It is why you were chosen. A distant rumble of thunder punctuated the statement, and the sea began to churn more violently. Time grows short, both messengers said simultaneously. The first trial approaches. Prove your worthiness as champions. Wait, Percy called out. What trial? You can't just drop this on us in. The water and lightning beings suddenly exploded outward, the resulting shockwave knocking both young men off their feet. Percy tumbled onto the wet sand while Naruto flipped in midair, landing in a crouch atop the water. As the elemental energies dissipated, the storm intensified. The sky darkened to an unnatural purple-black, and the waves grew to tremendous heights. I don't think they're coming back with clarification, Annabeth shouted over the wind, helping Percy to his feet. They never do, Percy grumbled, brushing sand from his jeans. Naruto approached the shoreline cautiously, still walking on water as though it were solid ground. So, you're Percy, and you're what exactly? Demigod, Percy replied tersely. Son of Poseidon, and you're standing on my element, which is kind of my thing. Chakra control, Naruto shrugged. Basic stuff where I come from. I'm a shinobi from Konohagakure. And apparently we've both been drafted into some divine championship match. Annabeth stepped forward. I'm Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena. And I think we have bigger problems than figuring out who's who. She pointed toward the horizon where the storm clouds were spiraling into a massive vortex, and within that vortex, shapes were beginning to form. Large, monstrous shapes. Those don't look friendly, Naruto observed, squinting at the distant figures. Percy gripped Riptide tighter. They never are. The first creature emerged from the storm, a chimeric nightmare with the body of a giant shark. 6 crab-like legs protruding from its sides, and a humanoid torso rising from where its head should be. The humanoid portion carried a trident made of what appeared to be solidified darkness. What in Hades is that? Percy muttered. That's not from our mythology. Not from mine either, Naruto confirmed, already forming a cross-shaped hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. In a puff of smoke, 3 perfect duplicates of Naruto appeared beside him, each as solid and real as the original. Percy blinked in surprise. Okay, that's a new one. You ain't seen nothing yet, one of the Narutos grinned. A swirling ball of energy forming in his palm with the help of another clone. More creatures were emerging from the vortex, some recognizable to Percy as Greek monsters, others completely foreign. A flock of harpies swooped down alongside what appeared to be paper origami birds that transformed into humanoid shapes mid-flight. Annabeth, get back to camp and warn Chiron, Percy ordered. Tell him to prepare defenses. Annabeth hesitated only briefly before nodding. Be careful, seaweed brain. And maybe try not to antagonize your new divine co-champion until we figure this out. As she sprinted back toward the camp boundaries, Percy turned to Naruto. I don't know how you fight where you come from, but around here, we typically stab the monsters until they turn to dust. Naruto dispelled 2 of his clones. Keeping one beside him. Where I come from, we hit them with this. Rasengan. The swirling energy in his palm intensified into a compact sphere of visible chakra. Naruto charged forward with inhuman speed, leaping high into the air toward the approaching shark crab monstrosity. His clone propelled him forward with an extra push, and Naruto slammed the Rasengan directly into the creature's humanoid chest. Rasengan. The impact created a spiral explosion of energy that tore through the monster's flesh. The creature let out an unholy screech before dissolve. Not into golden dust as Percy expected, but into a shower of water and paper talismans. Impressive, Percy admitted, before turning his attention to a group of harpies diving toward him. With practiced ease, he slashed through the first one, causing it to explode into golden dust. He dodged the second, using the momentum to propel himself into a spinning attack that caught 2 more. The RTH harpy managed to rake its claws across his shoulder before Percy stabbed upward, adding another cloud of monster dust to the battlefield. The wound stung, but Percy could already feel the healing properties of the nearby sea beginning to work on it. He glanced over to see Naruto engaged with several of the paper humanoids, his movements a blur of orange and black as he fought with a combinati. On of those energy spheres and taijutsu, martial arts unlike any fighting style Percy had seen before. More monsters poured from the vortex. Percy summoned a massive wave, directing it to crash into a cluster of approaching telekines. The sea responded to his will this time, suggesting whatever interference had been affecting his powers earlier had diminished. There's too many of them, Naruto called out, now surrounded by at least 10 clones of himself, each fighting independently. Percy recognized the tactical problem. They were being overwhelmed by numbers, forced to fight defensively rather than take the battle to the source. He looked at the vortex, an idea forming. Can you get me up there? Percy pointed to the center of the storm. I think that's where they're coming from. Nah. Naruto disengaged from his current opponents, leaving his clones to continue fighting. He landed beside Percy, evaluating the distance. I can get you clothes with a clone chain, but it's risky. Story of my life, Percy replied with a grim smile. Let's do it. With another hand sign, Naruto created 20 clones in rapid succession. They formed a living chain, each gripping the ankles of the next, with the original Naruto at the base. With a mighty heave, the clone chain began to swing Percy toward the vortex. When I give the signal, let go, Percy shouted over the howling wind. As he approached the apex of the swing, Percy called, now. The clone at the end released him, sending Percy hurtling toward the heart of the vortex. He streamlined his body, Riptide extended before him, using his demigod strength to maintain control in the violent winds. Inside the vortex, Percy found himself in what appeared to be a pocket dimension, a sphere of calm within the storm. At its center floated a pulsing orb, half glowing sea green, half crackling with yellow lightning. Surrounding it were various symbols Percy didn't recognize, except for his father's trident, which was inscribed on the green half. Here goes nothing, Percy muttered, and drove Riptide into the orb. The reaction was instantaneous. The orb shattered, releasing a blinding flash of energy that threw Percy backward. The vortex began to collapse, the monsters still emerging from it shrieking as they were pulled back into nothingness. Percy found himself falling, the remains of the vortex disintegrating around him. The ocean below rushed up to meet him, and he braced for impact, knowing his connection to the sea would protect him from the fall. Instead, something orange blurred through his vision, and he felt himself caught in midair. Naruto, or one of his clones, had leapt up to intercept him, grabbing Percy and redirecting their momentum to land safely on the water's surface. As they touched down, the last of the monsters vanished, either destroyed in battle or sucked back into the collapsing vortex. The storm began to dissipate, rays of sunlight breaking through the dark clouds. Nice save, Percy, acknowledged as Naruto set him on his feet. Nice work with the, whatever that was, Naruto replied, dispelling his remaining clones with a hand gesture. You always dive headfirst into mysterious vortexes. Only on Tuesdays, Percy quipped, capping Riptide and returning it to his pocket. So, I guess that was the trial they mentioned. Naruto shrugged, his blue eyes scanning the now calming sea. Maybe, or maybe it was just the warm-up. As if on cue, two new figures appeared on the beach, one emerging from the sea foam, the other descending from the dissipating storm clouds. Unlike the elemental messengers from before, these were fully humanoid and solid. The woman who rose from the sea was tall and regal, with long dark hair that seemed to flow like water even in the still air. She wore traditional Japanese garments in shades of blue and green, and her eyes held the depth of the ocean itself. The man who descended from the sky had the build of a warrior, with close-cropped blonde hair and electric blue eyes. He wore gleaming bronze armor over a purple toga, and a golden eagle perched on his shoulder. Percy immediately recognized the second figure. Lord Jupiter, he said, bowing slightly. Or are you Zeus today? Jupiter, for this meeting, the king of the Roman gods confirmed, his voice like distant thunder. Though the distinction grows less meaningful as the convergence progresses. Naruto studied the woman from the sea. And you are Amaterasu, she replied, her voice melodious yet powerful. Goddess of the sun and universe in the Shinto pantheon. Percy and Naruto exchanged glances, both clearly thinking the same thing. These weren't the deities who had claimed them as champions. Where's Poseidon? Percy asked. And Susanoo? Jupiter's expression darkened. That is part of why we are here. The convergence has complicated matters. Your respective patrons have been temporarily contained, Amaterasu explained gently. Their direct confrontation threatened to accelerate the convergence beyond control. Contained. Percy's hand moved instinctively toward Riptide again. By whom? By the collective will of both pantheons, Jupiter stated firmly. This was not a hostile action, but a necessary precaution. Naruto crossed his arms. So what happens now? Are we still expected to fight as champions when our so-called patrons are out of commission? Amaterasu and Jupiter exchanged meaningful glances. The championship must proceed, Amaterasu said. But its nature has changed. You are no longer merely representatives of Poseidon and Susanoo, but of your entire pantheons. The trial you just faced was not the intended first challenge, Jupiter added. It was an unforeseen consequence of the containment, a release. chaotic energy that manifested as those hybrid monsters. Percy ran a hand through his windswept hair in frustration. So let me get this straight. My father and his counterpart from another pan, Theon, chose us as champions for some divine competition. Then they got benched by the rest of the gods, and now we're supposed to keep fighting for teams that can't even agree on their own players. Your understanding is incomplete but essentially correct, Jupiter acknowledged with the faintest hint of approval in his tone. What's at stake here? Naruto asked, his expression deadly serious. Because where I come from, we don't fight without knowing what we're fighting for. Amaterasu's serene expression faltered slightly. The stability of all realities. When pantheons converge, their fundamental laws conflict. Without resolution through champions, the conflicting divine laws would tear apart the fabric of existence itself. The convergence is not unprecedented, Jupiter added. In ancient times, when Rome absorbed Greek culture, a similar but smaller event occurred. The resolution was the merging of our identities, Zeus and Jupiter becoming two aspects of the same divine entity. But that was within closely related pantheons, Amaterasu continued. This convergence involves multiple divine realities with vastly different cosmological structures. Percy looked out at the now calm sea, then back at the beach where Annabeth had likely reached Camp Half-Blood by now. And what happens to the champions when this is over? What happens to our worlds? Neither deity immediately answered, which Percy had learned over the years was never a good sign. The pantheon that prevails will set the new cosmic order, Jupiter finally stated. The degree of integration or separati on between realities will be determined by the outcome. And if we refuse to participate, Naruto challenged. Amaterasu's expression was compassionate but unyielding. Then chaos decides for us all. Before either champion could respond, a new disturbance interrupted the conversation. The air about 20 feet away from them shimmered and tore open, creating what appeared to be a doorway of pure light. Two figures emerged from the portal, both female, both exuding power in distinctly different ways. The first was a young woman with long dark hair pulled into a high ponytail, wearing Roman-style armor over a purple t-shirt. Her regal bearing and the tattoo visible on her forearm, SPQR with crossed swords and 4 lines, immediately identified her to Percy. Reina, he called in surprise. The former praetor of New Rome nodded in acknowledgement, though her attention remained primarily on the shimmering portal behind her. The second woman was unlike anyone Percy had seen before. She had dark blue hair cut in a short style, with pale lavender eyes that lacked pupils. She wore a lavender and cream jacket over a mesh armor shirt, and moved with the practiced grace of a trained fighter. Hinata, Naruto said, his voice softening slightly. How did you get here? Naruto-kun, the blue-haired woman replied, relief evident in her voice. The Hokage sent me to find you when you disappeared. Lady Tsunade detected the dimensional disturbance and worked with Ino's father to trace your chakra signature. Reina approached the group, her hand resting on the pommel of her sword. Iron detected the portal forming and sent me to investigate. We've been monitoring similar phenomena around Camp Jupiter for the past week. Jupiter and Amaterasu exchanged concerned glances. The boundaries continue to weaken. Jupiter observed. Those not directly involved should not be able to cross between realms so easily. It is as we feared, Amaterasu added. The convergence accelerates. Reina studied the two deities with the calculated assessment of a seasoned strategist. Lord Jupiter, she acknowledged with a respectful nod before turning to the unfamiliar goddess. And you must be from the other pantheon. I am Amaterasu of the Shinto gods, the goddess confirmed. Hinata bowed deeply, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. Amaterasu Omikami, she said reverently. Percy moved closer to Reina. Things have gotten complicated, he summarized quietly. When are they not? She replied with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. The Legion is on high alert. Strange monsters have been appearing throughout California, and the auguries have been disturbing. Naruto and Hinata conversed in hushed tones a few feet away, with Hinata occasionally glancing at Percy and the others with those unsettling pupil-less eyes. We don't have much time, Jupiter announced, drawing everyone's attention. The first formal trial of champions will begin at dawn tomorrow. You must prepare. What exactly will this trial involve? Percy asked. A test of leadership and battlefield prowess, Amaterasu answered. Each champion may select 2 companions to aid them. Percy and Naruto locked eyes across the beach, the implications clear. They were being set up as opposing generals in a divine war game. The location will be neutral territory, Jupiter continued. A constructed battlefield that draws elements from both your worlds. And the objective? Naruto questioned. Capture the divine flame, Amaterasu stated. A manifestation of pure celestial fire. That neither champion can touch directly. Your companions must secure it and return it to your designated sanctuary. Reina stepped forward. I volunteer to stand with Percy Jackson. As do I. See. Aim. A new voice from the direction of Camp Half-Blood. Everyone turned to see a tall young woman with caramel-colored hair and kaleidoscopic eyes that seemed to shift colors as she approached. She wore standard Camp Half-Blood attire, orange t-shirt and jeans, but carried herself with unusual dignity. Piper. Percy greeted her with surprise. I thought you were in Los Angeles with your dad. I was, Piper McLean confirmed. Until Rachel Dare called me 3 days ago babbling about convergence and champions. I've been helping Chiron prepare the campers since then. I'll stand with Naruto, Hinata said firmly. Moving closer to the blonde shinobi. The second volunteer for Naruto's team emerged not from the portal but from the sea itself. A slender woman with auburn hair and blue-green eyes rose from the water much as Amaterasu had, though without the divine aura. She wore what appeared to be a blue battle dress with mesh armor visible at her neck and legs. Mei Terumi, she introduced herself with a slight bow. Former 5th Mizukage. I was investigating chakra disturbances in our oceans when I found myself pulled into this situation. Naruto looked as surprised by her appearance as Percy had been by Piper's. But he quickly recovered. I'm honored to have your support, Lady Mizukage. Former Mizukage, she corrected with a small smile. And the honor is mine, hero of the 4th Great Ninja War. Jupiter raised his hand, commanding attention. Then it is settled. At dawn, the champions and their companions will be transported to the battlefield. The trial will conclude when one team successfully returns the divine flame to their sanctuary, or when the sun reaches its zenith. And if neither team succeeds? Percy asked. Then the trial is considered failed, Amaterasu stated solemnly. And the convergence will advance to its next phase without resolution. Which means what, exactly? Naruto pressed. Further deterioration of the boundaries between worlds, Jupiter replied grimly. More chaotic manifestations like the one you just faced. Eventually, complete collapse of separate realities into one chaotic whole. The gravity of the situation settled over the group like a physical weight. Percy and Naruto once again exchanged glances, but this time with a shared understanding rather than suspicion. We'll be ready, Percy stated. Believe it, Naruto added with determination. As Jupiter and Amaterasu began to fade from view, returning to their respective divine realms, Amaterasu offered one final piece of advice. Remember, champions, T's trial tests not only your strength and skill, but your wisdom. The path to victory may not be what it first appears. With that cryptic statement, the deities vanished completely, leaving the 2 champions and their newly formed teams standing on the beach as the last rays of sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. Percy turned to Reina and Piper. We should get back to camp and prepare. Naruto nodded to Hinata and Mei. We need to discuss strategy. As the 2 groups began to separate, Percy called out, Naruto. The shinobi paused, looking back. May the best champion win, Percy offered with a grim smile. Naruto returned the expression, his blue eyes reflecting the determination that had carried him through countless battles in his own world. Count on it. Sud. Den rumble shook the ground beneath their feet, and far out at sea, a column of water rose up like a silent warning, a reminder that forces beyond their control were watching, waiting, and perhaps manipulating every move in this cosmic game of chess. Percy's expression hardened as he watched the water column collapse back into the sea. One thought dominated his mind. He might have been chosen as a champion. But he'd be damned if he'd just be a pawn in another divine power play. Little did he know that across the beach, Naruto Uzumaki was thinking exactly the same thing. As the 2 teams parted ways, a third observer remained undetected, perched high in a nearby pine tree. Her form was partially obscured by the shadows of branches, but the dying sunlight caught the gleam of twin circular blades, chakrams, strapped to her back. Kalina Vasilis, daughter of Nemesis, watched the proceedings with keen interest. Unlike most demigods, she could actually see the thin, golden threads of fate that connected the two champions, threads that were being pulled and manipulated by forces even the gods themselves might not fully comprehend. "So it begins," she whispered, her dark eyes tracking Perk. Wise group as they headed toward Camp Half-Blood. But not as anyone expects. From her vantage point, she could see what the others couldn't yet perceive, a third column of energy, neither sea green L. Like Poseidon's nor electric blue like Susano's, but deep purple and pulsing with ancient power. It manifested briefly on the horizon before disappearing, a harbinger of complications to come. Kalina reached into her pocket and withdrew a small obsidian coin, a gift from her mother. One side bore the symbol of a scale, the other a sword, balance and retribution. She flipped it high into the air, catching it and slapping it onto the back of her hand without looking. When she finally glanced down, the coin showed neither scale nor sword, but a third symbol that shouldn't exist, a broken crown. "Interesting," she murmured, slipping the coin back into her pocket. "Very interesting indeed." With practiced agility, she descended from the tree and began making her way toward Camp Half-Blood, keeping a careful distance behind Percy's group. Tomorrow's trial might be between two champions, but Kalina had her own role to play in this cosmic drama, one dictated not by gods, but by the fundamental force of balance itself. And balance, as her mother had taught her, sometimes required tipping the scales. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Bonds and Betrayals. Dawn broke over the reconstructed battlefield, like blood seeping through a bandage. The sky shifted from indigo to crimson as the first rays of sunlight crept across a landscape that existed nowhere and everywhere at once, a perfect amalgamation of two worlds colliding. To the east stood a miniature version of Camp Half-Blood's forest, complete with a creek that sparkled with the same magical properties as the one back home. Ancient Greek columns rose from strategic positions, some intact, others artfully crumbled to provide cover in what was clearly designed to be Percy's territory. To the west, the landscape transformed into a training ground reminiscent of Konoha. With dense foliage different from the Greek forest, scattered training posts, and terrain that rose and fell in a pattern familiar to any shinobi. A small replica of the Hokage monument stood in the distance, though the faces carved there were not those of past leaders but blank slates, a reminder that this world was temporary, constructed. Between these two territories stretched a no-man's land of mixed elements, bamboo growing alongside olive trees, a lake that seemed to shift between salt and fresh water depending on which angle you viewed it from, and at the very center, a temple of impossible architecture that combined Grecian columns with traditional Japanese torii gates. Inside that temple, visible through its open design, floated what could only be the divine flame, a sphere of fire that burned in all colors simultaneously, suspended above an altar that was itself half stone, half lacquered wood. Percy Jackson surveyed this battlefield from a rise near his camp's boundary. Riptide uncapped but held loose at his side, the familiar weight of celestial bronze offered little comfort against the strangeness of their situation. "Thoughts?" he asked, not turning to look at the women who flanked him. Reina Avila Ramirez Arellano stood to his right, her dark hair pulled back in its usual practical braid, imperial gold sword and dagger strapped at her waist. Her posture was impeccable, the bearing of someone who had commanded legions and faced down gods. The tattoo on her forearm, SPQR with crossed swords and 4 lines, seemed to shimmer slightly in this place between realities. The terrain favors neither side explicitly, she observed, her analytical gaze sweeping the battlefield. But there are at least 6 potential ambush points between here and the temple. If I were commanding the legion, I'd secure the high ground to the north first. Naruto doesn't think like a Roman tactician, Percy reminded her. No, Reina agreed, but his companion, the former Mizukage, might. From what little I've gathered, she's a veteran of their equivalent of the Titan War. On Percy's left, Hyper McLean traced a line in the dirt with the tip of her bronze dagger, Katoptris. Unlike Percy and Reina, who wore armor over their orange Camp Half-Blood shirts, Hyper had opted for more maneuverable attire, dark jeans, a fitted black top, and a lightweight leather jacket that wouldn't restrict her movement. Naruto's fighting style is unpredictable, she said, her kaleidoscopic eyes reflecting the rising sun. I watched recordings of his battles that Jupiter provided last night. He creates dozens of clones and transforms the battlefield in seconds. Percy nodded. I saw that firsthand yesterday. But that's not what concerns me most. Both women looked at him expectantly. Something about this whole setup feels wrong, Percy continued, his sea-green eyes narrowing. Why pit pantheons against each other through champions? The gods are manipulative, sure. But they're usually not suicidal. And this convergence thing threatens all of them. Reyna's expression hardened. You think there's more to this than divine competition? It wasn't a question. I think we're missing a big piece of the puzzle, Percy confirmed. And I don't like going into battle without knowing the real objective. Piper's hand tightened around Catoptris. The blade hasn't shown me any visions related to this quest. That's unusual for something this significant. A distant horn sounded, the signal that the trial was officially beginning. Percy capped Riptide, returning it to pen form and slipping it into his pocket. Well, ladies, I guess we'll have to figure it out as we go. Story of my life. What's the plan? Reyna asked, all business now that the horn had sounded. Percy's smile was sharp, reminiscent of the young man who had survived Tartarus rather than the easygoing hero most people saw. Naruto will expect me to lead from the front. So let's surprise him. Across the battlefield, Naruto Uzumaki crouched on a tree branch, his vibrant blue eyes scanning the terrain. Unlike Percy, he wore no armor, just his standard black and orange outfit. Worn with the confidence of someone who trusted speed and skill over protection. The symbol of Konoha gleamed on his forehead protector, a reminder of where his true loyalties lay, regardless of divine politics. Beside him, Hinata Hyuga activated her Byakugan, the veins around her pale lavender eyes bulging slightly as her vision expanded to encompass nearly the entire battlefield. Percy's team is moving, she reported, her soft voice carrying only to Naruto's ears. Reyna is taking point, heading north toward the high ground. Piper is moving along the creek to the east. She paused, frowning slightly. I don't see Percy. Underground, Naruto suggested, remembering the demigod's connection to earth as well as water. Hinata shook her head. No chakra signature below the surface. He's in the water, came a third voice as Mai Terumi joined them on the branch, moving with the fluid grace that had made her legendary among the five kage. Her auburn hair was tied back, and she had exchanged her usual blue dress for more practical battle attire, though she still somehow managed to look elegant. The creek connects to the lake. If his hydrokinesis works as described, he could move through the entire water system undetected. Naruto nodded, processing this information. In the years since the Fourth Great Ninja War, he had matured considerably as a tactician, no lon. Jeer the impulsive boy who rushed headlong into every battle. Hinata, can you confirm? She concentrated, her Byakugan's range extending further. There's a disturbance in the water flow near the lake's eastern shore. It could be him. Naruto created a shadow clone with a puff of smoke. Go check it out. Don't engage. Just confirm. The clone nodded and leapt away, moving with practiced stealth through the trees. What's our approach? Mai asked, her mismatched eyes, one blue, one green, fixed on the distant temple. A direct assault would play into their expectations. Naruto grinned, AF. Lash of his old mischievous self showing through his more mature exterior. Who says we have to approach at all? Both women looked at him with matching expressions of curiosity. Hinata, how close? Do you need to use gentle fist effectively? Within 30 meters is optimal, she replied. But I can strike accurately up to 50 if necessary. Naruto turned to Mai. And your lava style has a range of what, 60 meters? A small smile curved Mai's lips as she caught on to his thinking. When properly focused, yes. Then we don't approach the temple, Naruto concluded. We make them come to us. Kalina Vasilis had no divine blessing that allowed her to see through water or across vast distances. What she did have was something far more useful in this particular scenario, a calm, comprehensive understanding of how Percy Jackson thought. She perched atop one of the crumbled Greek columns that dotted the northern ridge, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, twin chakrams strapped to her back. Unlike the official participants, Kalina hadn't been transported to this battlefield by the gods. She had followed the threads of fate, literally, in her case, as children of Neem. Sis could see the golden strands that connected significant players in cosmic events. From her vantage point, she tracked Reyna's progress up the ridge. The former praetor moved with practiced efficiency, securing defensible positions as she advanced. Kalina had to admire her tactical mind, even if Reyna's rigid adherence to Roman military doctrine made her somewhat predictable. Kalina's real interest, however, lay with Percy. She had noticed his absence immediately and, unlike Naruto's team, didn't need special abilities to guess where he was. The son of Poseidon would use his greatest stray, NGTH, water, not just as a weapon but as a means of transportation. 3, 2, 1, she murmured under her breath. On cue, the surface of the lake rippled and Percy emerged, water streaming off him as he stepped onto the shore. Completely dry, one of the many perks of being Poseidon's son. He moved with quiet confidence toward a cluster of bamboo that would provide cover while giving him a clear view of the temple. Kalina smiled to herself. So predictable. She withdrew a small obsidian coin from her pocket, the same one she had flipped the previous day. Children of Nemesis were gifted with the ability to slightly alter probability, to tip the scales of fate when balance required it. And balance, as Kalina had determined after her coin had shown the broken crown, definitely required intervention here. Time to add a little chaos to the equation, she whispered, flipping the coin into the air. It caught the sunlight as it spun, flashing with unnatural brightness before she snatched it back and slipped it into her pocket without checking the result. The effect was instantaneous. The ground beneath the temple trembled, not violently enough to damage the structure, but sufficient to disturb the divine flame, which flickered and split into two identical flames, one remaining on the altar while the other shot skyward before arcing toward the forest. Kalina watched with satisfaction as all plans on both sides immediately dissolved into confusion. Percy froze mid-step as the ground trembled. His first thought was earthquake, his father's domain, but he hadn't caused this. He watched in disbelief as the divine flame split, one half remaining in place while the other soared through the air like a comet. What in Hades? He muttered, immediately changing direction to track the second flame. The earpiece he wore, a gift from Annabeth before they'd departed, enchanted by the Hephaestus cabin to work even in divine realms, crackled to life. Percy, what just happened? Reyna's voice, calm despite the unexpected development. The flame split, he replied, picking up speed as he tracked the trajectory of the flying fire. One still at the temple, the others headed toward the forest. Change of plans. I'm going after the airborne one. Could be a trap, Piper cautioned through the earpiece. I don't remember Jupiter or Amaterasu mentioning multiple flames. They didn't, Percy confirmed. Which means either they didn't know, or something's interfering with their divine game. He heard Reyna's sharp intake of breath. A third party. Exactly, Percy agreed, vaulting over a fallen tree. Reyna, maintain position on the ridge. You've got the best view. Piper, circle back toward the temple but don't engage yet. I'm going to see what our mystery flame is all about. As Percy approached the Greek forest section, he uncapped Riptide again, the celestial bronze sword elongating in his grip. The flying flame had descended somewhere in the densest part of the woods, where the shadows seemed unnaturally deep despite the morning sun. A flicker of movement caught his attention, a figure darting between trees ahead. Percy changed course to intercept, his demigod speed allowing him to close the distance rapidly. As he rounded a massive oak, he nearly collided with his quarry. Whoa, he exclaimed, skidding to a halt, Riptide raised defensively. The man before him wore a leather jacket over a black tank top, dark jeans, and combat boots. Twin circular blades, chakrams, were strapped to her back, and her olive-toned skin suggested Mediterranean heritage. Her dark eyes widened momentarily in surprise before narrowing with calculation. Percy Jackson, she stated, her voice carrying a hint of an accent he couldn't quite place. Right on time. Percy kept Riptide leveled between them. Do I know you? Not yet, she replied cryptically. My name is Kalina Vasilis, daughter of Nemesis. Percy's wariness increased. Children of Nemesis were raw, and often complicated. Their mother being the goddess of balance and retribution meant they tended to appear when cosmic scales needed adjustment. Rarely did that work out well for whoever they encountered. You're not supposed to be here, he observed. This trial is for champions and their chosen companions. Kalina smiled, a sharp expression that reminded Percy uncomfortably of her mother. And yet, here I am. Funny how fate works. Did you cause the flame to split? Percy demanded, taking a step closer. She didn't back away. I merely encouraged an already existing possibility. Flame itself is more complex than your divine sponsors let on. Why? Balance requires it, she stated, as if that explained everything. From her perspective, Percy supposed it did. The earpiece crackled again. Percy. Reina's voice was urgent now. Naruto's team is moving. The blue-haired woman, Hinata, is approaching the temple from the west while Naruto and the Mizukage are creating some kind of distraction to the south. Percy didn't take his eyes off Kalina. Understood. Stick to the plan. To the daughter of Nemesis, he said, what's your stake in this, Kalina? Why interfere in a divine championship? Because it's not what you think it is, she replied, glancing toward the sky where the second flame had disappeared into the forest. The convergence is real, yes, but this petition is a farce, a distraction from the true threat. Percy's instincts, honed through years of godly manipulation, told him she was telling the truth, or at least, what she believed was the truth. What true threat? He pressed. Kalina reached behind her, causing Percy to tense, but she merely withdrew something from her jacket pocket, a small obsidian coin which she held up between two fingers. The broken crown, she said. An ancient power that predates both pantheons, awakened by the initial convergence tremors. It seeks to exploit the weakened boundaries between realities. And the gods don't know about this? Percy asked skeptically. Some suspect, Kalina corrected. Others are blinded by their own divine politics. A few may even be compromised. The ground trembled again, more violently this time. In the distance, Percy heard the crash of something large toppling over. That wasn't me either, Kalina said, pocketing the coin. We're running out of time. The second flame is the key. It's not just fire but a fragment of pure creation energy. In the right hands, it could stabilize the convergence. In the wrong hands, end of the world as we know it, Percy finished grimly. I'm familiar with the concept. A deafening roar shattered the momentary quiet of the forest, followed by the distinctive sound of trees being uprooted. Something massive was moving toward them, drawn perhaps by the second flame's energy. We need to move, Kalina urged, her hand going to one of her chakrams. Percy hesitated only a moment before making a decision. His instincts had kept him alive through 2 wars and countless quests. Right now, they were telling him to trust this daughter of Nemesis, at least provisionally. Where's the flame now? He asked. Kalina pointed deeper into the forest. About 200 meters that way. But we're not the only ones tracking it. Naruto. She shook her head. Something else. Something old. The roaring grew louder. Percy activated his earpiece again. Change of plans, team. The flame at the temple might be a decoy. I'm tracking the second one with an unexpected ally. Reina, maintain position and keep me updated on Naruto's team. Piper, I need you to circle around to the eastern edge of the forest. Coordinates approximately 37 by 42 on the map Annabeth provided. Copy that, Reina responded immediately. On my way, Piper confirmed. But Percy, be careful. Jupiter never mentioned anything about the flame splitting. Which means either he didn't know. Percy began. Or he lied. Kalina finished for him. Gods do that, you know. Percy gave her a wry look. I'm aware. The trees ahead of them suddenly parted as a massive creature burst into view, a chimeric nightmare that resembled nothing from either Greek or Japanese mythology. It had the lower body of a lion, the torso of a man covered in obsidian scales, and not one but 3 heads, a bull, a serpent, and what appeared to be a youth with golden eyes. All 3 heads were focused on something clutched in the creature's clawed hand, a small sphere of multicolored fire. The second flame, Percy breathed. Technically, it's the first, Kalina corrected. The one at the temple is the copy. Percy decided that was a distinction they could debate later. Any idea what that thing is? A manifestation of the broken crown's power, Kalina replied, drawing both chakrams now. Physical form drawn from the fears and mythologies of both worlds. So how do we kill it? Kalina gave him a sidelong glance. We don't. We can't. Not directly. It's a concept given form. Not a true monster. Then how do we get the flame back? The daughter of Nemesis twirled her chakrams, the circular blades catching the filtered sunlight that penetrated the forest canopy. We balance the equation. Before Percy could ask what exactly that meant, Kalina launched into action, throwing one chakram with precision. The blade sliced through the air, not toward the creature itself but toward a large branch hanging precariously above it. Percy caught on instantly. He raised his free hand, feeling the familiar tug in his gut as he pulled moisture from the surrounding plants and air, condensing it into a pressurized jet of water that he directed at the same branch. The combined force of water and chakram severed the branch, sending it crashing down onto the creature's serpent head. The monster roared in pain and anger, its attention diverted momentarily from the flame. That was all Percy needed. He charged forward, riptide a gleaming arc of steel bronze as he slashed at the creature's arm. The sword connected, but instead of the expected resistance of flesh, it passed through with only the slightest drag, as if cutting through thick syrup. The wound leaked not blood but golden light, and the creature bellowed from all three mouths. Its bull head swung toward Percy, nostrils flaring. "Percy! Left!" Kalina shouted. He dodged right as her second chakram whistled past, slicing across the bull head's eyes. More golden light spilled forth, but the creature didn't seem significantly weakened. "The flame!" Percy called out, noticing the sphere of fire flickering more intensely in the monster's grip. "It's draining energy from it." Kalina caught her returning chakram with practiced ease. "We need to separate them." The human head of the chimera turned toward them, its golden eyes pulsing with ancient malevolence. When it spoke, its voice was like stone grinding against stone. "Champions play at games while the foundations crumble," it intoned. "The broken crown rises. The old chains rust." Percy had heard enough cryptic prophecies and ancient threats to last several lifetimes. He charged again, this time focusing on the creature's wrist rather than attempting to wound it directly. "Kalina, distraction," he called out. The daughter of Nemesis immediately understood. She threw both chakrams simultaneously, each taking a different trajectory to attack the creature's other heads. As the monster's attention split three ways, Percy slid beneath its guard and brought Riptide down on its wrist with all his demigod strength. This time, the blade cut deeper, the celestial bronze humming with power as it connected with whatever force animated this being. The creature's grip on the flame loosened momentarily, enough for Percy to reach up and grab it. The moment his fingers touched the multicolored fire, Percy experienced a sensation unlike anything he'd felt before. It wasn't heat, though the flame appeared to burn brightly. Instead, it was like holding pure potential, a piece of creation not yet decided on what it would become. For a heartbeat, Percy felt connected to something vaster than even the gods, something that made Zeus and Poseidon seem like children playing with toys. The creature roared in fury, its free hand swinging toward Percy's head. He rolled away, the divine flame clutched protectively against his chest. "Run!" Kalina shouted, catching her returning chakrams and immediately throwing them again to cover Percy's retreat. He didn't need to be told twice. With the flame secured, Percy sprinted back the way they had come. Riptide returned to pen form so he could move faster through the dense forest. The creature pursued, its massive form crashing through trees and undergrowth with terrifying speed. Kalina flanked Percy, moving with the agility of someone who had spent years training for exactly this kind of situation. "Where to?" Percy asked between breaths. "Not the temple," Kalina replied. "That's what it wants, both flames in one location." "Then where?" "The boundary between territories," she suggested. "Where Greek and Japanese elements meet. It's naturally unstable. We can use that." Percy nodded, adjusting his course. The flame in his hands pulsed as if responding to his thoughts, growing warmer but not burning him. The earpiece crackled again. "Percy." Reina's voice was strained. "The situation is escalating. The temple flame has become unstable. Naruto's companion, Hinata, is engaging with Piper near the eastern forest boundary." That matched their current trajectory. "We're headed that way too," Percy replied. "With company." "Define company," Reina demanded. "Big, ugly, 3 heads, very interested in the flame I'm carrying," Percy summarized. "And apparently connected to something called the Broken Crown." There was a moment of silence before Reina responded. The broken crown appears in some of the oldest Roman prophecies, pre-Republic. I see texts that most praetors aren't even allowed to access. It's bad, Percy. Of course it is, he muttered. They broke through the tree line into the mixed terrain of no man's land, the boundary zone where elements of both worlds blended. Percy skidded to a halt as he took in the scene before him. Piper was engaged in combat with Hinata Hyuga, though combat might have been the wrong word. The daughter of Aphrodite wasn't attacking directly but speaking in a melodious tone that Percy recognized as charm speak. Hinata, however, seemed partially resistant, her movements slowed but not stopped. As she attempted to close the distance between them, her hands glowing with chakra. Nearby, Naruto and Maid Terumi were nowhere to be seen, but evidence of their recent presence was everywhere: craters in the ground, scorch marks on rocks, and a lingering mist that smelled faintly of sulfur. The creature burst from the forest behind Percy and Kalina, all three heads roaring in unison. The sound drew everyone's attention. Hinata's pale eyes widened. What is that? Her Byakugan activated, the veins around her eyes bulging. Its chakra network is impossible. Piper seized the moment of distraction to move to Percy's side. Is that the second flame? She asked, eyeing the multicolored sphere in his hands. According to our new friend here, it's actually the original, Percy replied, nodding toward Kalina. Piper's kaleidoscopic eyes narrowed slightly. You're not part of this trial. Neither is that, Kalina retorted, pointing at the advancing chimera. The creature had slowed its charge, its golden-eyed human head surveying the scene with calculated malice. The convergence accelerates, it announced. The flame must be reunited. Don't listen to it, Kalina warned. If the flames merge now, without proper preparation, the dimensional barriers will collapse completely. Hinata had moved to a defensive position, her Byakugan still active as she studied the creature. It's not lying, she said, surprising everyone. At least, it believes what it's saying is true. But there's something wrong with its chakra, like it's being influenced by an outside force. Percy glanced at the flame in his hands, which was pulsing more rapidly now, as if responding to the creature's proximity. We need Naruto, he decided. What? Piper and Kalina asked simultaneously. If this is bigger than some divine competition, then we need to pool our resources, Percy explained. Naruto's not my enemy, he's just on the opposite side of a game that might not matter anymore. Kalina nodded slowly. Balance through cooperation. That could work. Hinata pressed her hand to her ear, apparently communicating through a device similar to Percy's earpiece. After a brief exchange in Japanese, she looked back at the group. Naruto and Mai-sama are at the temple. The flame there has become unstable, creating some kind of portal. Portal to where? Percy demanded. Naruto says it looks like Tartarus. Percy felt a chill run down his spine. He had visited Tartarus once, the darkest, deepest part of the underworld where monsters regenerated and titans were imprisoned. It was an experience he had no desire to repeat. We need to move, he decided. All of us, together. The creature took another step forward, its massive lion paws leaving imprints in the mixed soil of the boundary zone. The flame bearer speaks wisdom, it rumbled. Unity is the path. Bring the flame to the temple. Restore what was broken. Don't listen to it, Kalina insisted, her chakrams raised defensively. It's trying to manipulate us. Quote. Percy looked between the creature, the flame in his hands, and the distant temple where apparently a portal to the literal hell of his world was opening. Zhu. Another Tuesday in the life of Percy Jackson. Hinata. He addressed Naruto's companion directly. Can you use your Byakugan to check if Kalina is telling the truth about the flames needing to stay separated? The blue-haired woman hesitated only briefly before nodding. Her pale eyes focused on Kalina with unnerving intensity. Her chakra shows no deception patterns, Hinata confirmed after a moment. She believes what she's saying. Good enough for me, Percy decided. To Piper, he said, contact Reina. Tell her to stay at her position but be ready to move on my signal. To Hinata, can you get us to Naruto and Mai quickly? Hinata nodded. Follow me, I know a faster route. As they prepared to move, the chimera creature bellowed in rage. You cannot escape the convergence. All three heads spoke in unison now, creating a dissonant chorus. The broken crown will rise. It charged, moving with surprising speed for its size. Percy thrust the flame into Kalina's hands. "Take this. I'll hold it off." "Percy." Piper began to protest. "Go," he insisted. "I'll catch up." Kalina clutched the flame, which seemed to respond to her touch, burning brighter but still not harming her. "Don't engage it directly," she warned Percy. "Remember, it's a concept given form." Percy uncapped Riptide once more, the celestial bronze gleaming in the mid-morning light. "Concepts can still get stabbed," he replied grimly. "Now go." Quote. As the others retreated toward the temple, Percy stood his ground, sword raised against the charging chimera. The creature seemed to grow larger as it approached, darkness gathering around it like a cloak. "The son of the sea god," all three heads spoke in unison. "Twice savior, twice offered immortality, twice declined. Your thread is woven deeply in the tapestry." "Yeah, I get that a lot," Percy replied, circling to keep the monster's attention focused on him rather than his retreating companions. "What are you exactly?" "Not Greek, not Roman, definitely not Japanese." The human head smiled, a grotesque expression on its otherwise beautiful face. "We are the forgotten, the erased, the ones who came before your pathetic pantheons and will remain when they crumble to dust." "Titans," Percy guessed, though something told him this was older, more primordial. "Titans are children compared to us," the bullhead snorted. "We were ancient when Kronos was young." Percy had faced enough immortal beings to recognize the usual megalomaniacal speech pattern. They all thought they were the biggest, baddest thing to ever threaten existence. He'd proven them wrong every time. "So what's your plan?" "Merge the flames, break down the walls between worlds, rule everything in chaos." Percy taunted, continuing to circle, looking for an opening. "Not exactly original," the serpent head hissed. "Not chaos. Order. Absolute order. One reality. One rule. One crown." "The broken crown," Percy mused. "Doesn't sound very intact to me." All three heads roared in unified anger, and the creature lunged forward with startling speed. Percy had been anticipating the move, however, and sidestepped, bringing Riptide down in a diagonal slash across the monster's flank. The blade connected, drawing more of the golden light that served as the creature's blood. Unlike before, this wound didn't immediately begin to close. The chimera stumbled, momentarily off balance. Percy didn't waste the opportunity. He concentrated on the moisture in the air and ground, pulling it together into a swirling vortex around the monster's legs, then freezing it solid with a thought. The creature found itself suddenly immobilized from the waist down. "Impossible," the human head snarled. "You cannot bind us with mere elements." "Seems like I just did," Percy retorted, backing away. He needed to buy time for the others to reach the temple and figure out a plan. "So, this broken crown, I'm guessing it's not something you pick up at the local jewelry store." The creature struggled against its icy bonds, cracks already appearing in the frozen water. "Mock while you can, son of Poseidon." The crown was shattered and scattered across realities to prevent its power from being used. "The convergence has allowed us to locate the fragments, soon we will be whole again." "And the gods, where do they fit into this?" "Usurpers," the bullhead bellowed. "Pretenders who stole dominion from the true rulers of creation." The ice shattered as the creature broke free, but instead of charging Percy again, it paused, all three heads turning toward the temple in the distance. "The flames sense each other," it murmured. "The pull grows stronger." Percy took advantage of the distraction to launch another attack, this time focusing on the monster's bullhead. Riptide slashed across its throat, spilling more golden light. The creature staggered but didn't fall. "Your weapon cannot kill us," the serpent head hissed. "We are idea made manifest." "Maybe not," Percy admitted. "But I bet it hurts like Hades." He pressed his advantage, launching a series of strikes that forced the chimera backward. With each connection of celestial bronze to mythical flesh, more golden light spilled out. And the creature seemed to diminish slightly in size. In the distance, a column of multicolored fire suddenly shot up from the temple, reaching toward the sky. The chimera roared in what sounded like triumph. "It has begun," all three heads proclaimed. "The convergence accelerates." Percy's earpiece crackled to life. "Percy." It was Piper's voice, urgent and slightly breathless. "The flames are reacting to each other. Naruto and Kalina are trying to keep them separated, but it's like they have a mind of their own." On my way, Percy replied, taking a calculated risk. He turned his back on the chimera and sprinted toward the temple. The creature bellowed in rage but didn't immediately pursue. Instead, it began to dissolve, its physical form breaking down into swirls of darkness that streamed toward the temple like smoke caught in a draft. Percy pushed himself to run faster, his demigod stamina allowing him to maintain a pace that would exhaust a normal human within seconds. As he approached the temple, he could see figures moving within its open structure: Naruto's distinctive orange outfit, Mei's auburn hair, Hinata's defensive stance, Piper's determined Ned expression as she tried to use charm speak on the flames themselves. Kalina stood at the center, still holding the original flame, while the copy at the altar had risen to hover at eye level. Tendrils of fire stretched between the two, like they were trying to reconnect. Percy, Naruto called out as he noticed the approaching demigod. These flames are seriously bad news. Tell me something I don't know, Percy replied, leaping up the temple steps. Where's Reina? Still maintaining position on the ridge, Piper answered. She's our eyes from above. Percy turned to Kalina. What happens if the flames merge? The daughter of Nemesis's expression was grim. Total dimensional collapse. The barriers between worlds dissolve completely, allowing the broken crown to access all realities simultaneously. And that's bad because it would return power to beings that existed before the gods, Kalina explained. Beings that make Typhon look like a minor inconvenience. Naruto moved to Percy's side, his expression serious. I've dealt with ancient evils before. There's always a way to seal them. This isn't something you can seal, Kalina insisted. It's more fundamental than that. The broken crown isn't just a weapon or an entity, it's a concept of rule that predates free will itself. The temple shuddered, marble cracking and wooden beams groaning. Above the altar, the space behind the hovering flame began to. The temple shuddered, marble cracking and wooden beams groaning. Above the altar, the space behind the hovering flame began to distort, reality itself seeming to fold inward like paper crumpling under invisible hands. That's the portal, Mei Terumi observed, her mismatched eyes narrowed. It's becoming more stable. Through the widening tear in reality, Percy caught glimpses of a familiar hellscape, rivers of fire, jagged black rocks, and an atmosphere that seemed to press down with tangible malevolence. Tartarus. Just seeing it again sent a chill down his spine. Memories of his time there threatening to overwhelm him. We need to close it, he stated, forcing his voice to remain steady. And keep these flames apart. Naruto created a shadow clone with a hand sign. I'll send a clone to check what's on the other side. No. Percy grabbed the clone's arm before it could leap through. Trust me, you don't want to go there. Nothing survives in Tartarus except monsters and titans. And you, Hinata said quietly, her Byakugan active as she studied Percy with unsettling intensity. Your chakra, your life force, it bears the mark of that place. You've been there and returned. Percy met her gaze. Not an experience I recommend. The streams of darkness that had been the chimera finally reached the temple, swirling around the columns before converging on the portal. As they made contact with the dimensional tear, the opening widened dramatically, and a bone-deep cold emanated from within. It's stabilizing the portal, Kalina warned, struggling to maintain her grip on the original flame, which was pulling toward its counterpart with increasing force. We have maybe minutes before it's permanent. Naruto turned to Percy, his blue eyes intense. This isn't about our gods' competition anymore, is it? I don't think it ever was, Percy replied. We were just pawns in a bigger game. So what's the play? Naruto asked, fists clenched. Because I'm not letting some ancient evil destroy my world. Percy glanced between the flames, the portal, and their assembled group, demigods and shinobi forced together by circumstances beyond their control. An idea began to form, one that Annabeth would probably call reckless and dangerous. So, his usual kind of plan. The flames want to reunite, he began slowly. And fighting that pull is just delaying the inevitable. Are you suggesting we let them merge? Mei asked incredulously. No, Percy clarified. I'm suggesting we use their attraction to our advantage. Kalina, you said the flames are creation energy, right? Pure potential. The daughter of Nemesis nodded cautiously. Yes, and this broken crown entity is using the convergence to gather its scattered pieces. Percy continued. What if we create our own convergence? One we control. Naruto's eyes widened as he caught on. Use the flames to build a bridge rather than collapse the walls. Exactly, Percy confirmed, warming to the idea, not random chaos, but a directed merging, one that we define. Kalina looked skeptical. That would require immense power and precision. We'd need to essentially rewrite the rules of multiple realities simultaneously. Good thing we have champions from both worlds, then, Percy replied with grim determination. Plus a daughter of Nemesis who specializes in balance. And what about that? Piper pointed to the portal, which was still growing, the darkness feeding its expansion like fuel to a fire. We close it, Naruto stated, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. I've sealed plenty of dimensional tears before. Not like this, Percy warned. Tartarus isn't just another dimension, it's the pit. The darkest part of the underworld. Every world has its equivalent, May interjected thoughtfully. In ours, there are the pure lands and the impure realms. The principles of passage between them follow universal laws. Kalina suddenly gasped as the flame in her hands flared brighter. We need to decide now, she urged. The flames are reaching critical resonance. Percy turned to Naruto, extending his hand. Partners instead of rivals. The shinobi grinned, clasping Percy's forearm in a warrior's grip. Believe it, the moment their hands connected, something unexpected happened. A surge of energy passed between them, sea green and fox orange, creating a visible aura that encompassed both champions. What the? Percy began. The blessing of your patrons, Kalina realized, her eyes wide. Poseidon and Zeus, Anu. They're acknowledging your alliance. Hinata's Byakugan confirmed it. Your chakra networks are harmonizing, she reported with awe. I've never seen anything like it. Percy felt the familiar surge of his water powers. But now they seemed deeper, more profound, as if he could sense not just water but the very storms that stirred it. Beside him, Naruto's whisker marks darkened, and his blue eyes took on a subtle glow. I can feel the ocean, Naruto marveled, looking at his hands which now emitted a faint sea green glow alongside his usual chakra. Like, all of it, everywhere. And I feel like I could create a hurricane with a thought, Percy added, experiencing the strange sensation of chakra pathways he hadn't possessed minutes ago. May stepped forward. If you're going to do this, you'll need anchors, people to ground you in each reality while you work with the flames. She's right, Kalina agreed. The power you're channeling could tear you apart without proper grounding. Percy nodded toward Piper. You're my anchor. Always, she replied with a smile, moving to stand behind him, placing her hands on his shoulders. Naruto turned to Hinata. Will you? Yes, she answered before he could finish. Taking up position behind him, her hands gently resting on his back. Kalina and May exchanged glances. We'll manage the flames, the daughter of Nemesis decided. You eyed their merger along the path you create. The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the portal, Percy could now hear the distant roars of Tartarus's inhabitants, monsters sensing an opportunity to escape their prison. Reina, Percy activated his earpiece. We need you at the temple now. Bring whatever imperial gold you have. On my way, came the immediate response. As Percy and Naruto moved to stand on opposite sides of the altar, the combined powers of Poseidon and Susanoo swirling around them, Kalina carefully approached with the original flame. Once we begin, there's no stopping halfway, she warned. The energies involved will either merge properly or destroy everything in the backlash. No pressure, Percy muttered. Naruto grinned, that same irrepressible confidence that had defined him since childhood shining through. Hey, I've saved the world before. So have you. That makes us experts, right? Despite the dire circumstances, Percy found himself returning the smile. There was something about Naruto's optimism that felt familiar, the same refusal to accept defeat that had carried Percy through his darkest moments. Ready when you are, he told Kalina. The daughter of Nemesis took a deep breath and slowly extended her hands, bringing the original flame closer to its copy hovering above the altar. The moment they came within a foot of each other, the pull between them intensified dramatically, nearly yanking the flame from Kalina's grasp. Now, she shouted. Percy and Naruto acted simultaneously, reaching out not with their hands but with their newly merged powers. Percy felt the familiar tug in his gut, but instead of controlling water, he was somehow grasping the very essence of reality, the fluid boundary between worlds. Naruto's chakra manifested visibly, golden threads extending from his body to intertwine with Percy's sea-green energy, creating a lattice that surrounded both flames. "I can see it," Hinata gasped, her Byakugan perceiving layers of reality invisible to the others. "The dimensional boundaries, they're like fabric, and you're reweaving the threads." Piper's grip on Percy's shoulders tightened. "Stay anchored," she murmured. Her charm speak subtly reinforcing his connection to his own world even as he reached into another. The flames drew closer together, their light intensifying to near blinding levels. The portal to Tartarus pulsed in response, darkness pressing against the growing light. "There's resistance," Naruto grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to maintain the controlled merger. "Something fighting against us." Percy felt it too, a malevolent presence pushing back against their efforts, trying to twist the emerging pattern into something chaotic and destructive. The broken crown entity, working through the portal and the darkness it had fed into it. "Don't let it dictate the pattern," Kalina instructed, her voice strained as she struggled to guide the flames. "Impose your will on the convergence." Quote, easier said than done, Percy thought. This was like trying to hold back the ocean with bare hands, except the ocean was made of pure creation energy and existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Reina burst into the temple, imperial gold spear in hand, taking in the scene with a strategist's quick assessment. "Where do you need me?" she called over the growing roar of energies colliding. "The portal," Percy shouted back. "We need to close it before anything comes through." Nodding sharply, Reina advanced toward the tear in reality, her spear held at the ready. As a daughter of Bellona, Roman goddess of war, she carried an aura of battle discipline that seemed to push back against the encroaching darkness. "May," Naruto called out, "we need your lava style to seal the edges once Reina destabilizes it." The former Mizukage moved into position, her hands already forming seals. "Ready when you are." The flames were now mere inches apart, their individual colors beginning to blend at the edges. Percy could feel the strain on his body, even with his demigod constitution and Piper's anchoring. Channeling this level of power was like holding lightning in his veins. "On 3, Kalina instructed. 1. The portal pulsed, darkness pushing outward. 2. Reina thrust her imperial gold spear at the exact center of the tear, the divine metal creating a disruption in the dimensional fabric. 3. Several things happened simultaneously. Kalina released her hold on the original flame, allowing it to fly toward its counterpart. Percy and Naruto channeled every ounce of their combined power into shaping the resulting merger, their shared aura flaring to encompass the entire temple. Reina twisted her spear in the heart of the portal, creating a counter-rotation that began to collapse the opening rather than expand it. And May released a focused stream of lava-style jutsu that traced the edges of the collapsing portal, earing the dimensional fabric closed behind Reina's spear. The flames collided with a soundless explosion of light that momentarily blinded everyone in the temple. When Percy could see again, a single, perfectly spherical flame hovered above the altar, not multicolored as before, but a pure, radiant white that somehow contained all colors within it. The portal to Tartarus was gone, sealed shut by May's jutsu and Reina's spear, which had dissolved completely in the process. In its place was a small, crystalline window that showed not the hellscape of Tartarus but a peaceful meeting point bedway. Worlds, Camp Half-Blood's beach on one side merging seamlessly with what Percy assumed was a Konoha landscape on the other. It worked, Hinata breathed, her Byakugan still active as she observed He newly stabilized dimensional boundaries. The convergence has been directed, controlled. Naruto swayed slightly as the power that had surged between him and Percy began to recede. Did we just rewrite reality? Not exactly, Kalina explained, staring at the white flame with something like reverence. You created a bridge rather than collapsing the walls. The worlds remain distinct but connected, like islands in the same archipelago rather than continents crashing together. Percy felt utterly drained, staying upright only because of Piper's supportive grip on his shoulders. And the broken crown, still a threat, Kalina admitted, but its immediate path to power has been severed. It can no longer use the chaotic convergence to gather its fragments. The white flame pulsed once, then began to shrink. condensing into a smaller and smaller point of light until it was no larger than a marble. Then, with a final flash, it split into two identical sparks, one drifting toward Percy, the other toward Naruto. "What's happening?" Piper asked, watching as the spark hovered before Percy's chest. "The flame recognizes its champions," May suggested, her mismatched eyes wide with wonder. "It's offering itself to you." Quote. Percy and Naruto exchanged glances across the altar. "Together," Naruto suggested. Percy nodded. "Together." They each reached out and touched their respective spark of white fire. The moment contact was made, the sparks dissolved into their bodies, leaving behind a small, glowing mark on each of their palms, a trident intertwined with a spiral symbol th. At Percy didn't recognize but assumed was significant to Naruto's world. "What does this mean?" Percy asked, examining the mark that pulsed with gentle white light before slowly fading to leave what looked like a silvery scar. "It means you're bonded," Kalina explained. "Not just to each other, but to the balance between worlds. You've become living anchors of the new convergence." Naruto flexed his marked hand. "So we're like dimensional ambassadors now." "Something like that," Kalina smiled. The temple around them began to shimmer and fade, the divine construction serving its purpose. "And now returning to the realm of the gods. Looks like our trial is ending," Reina observed, moving to Percy's side. "But who won?" Piper wondered aloud. "Neither team captured the flame and returned it to their sanctuary." "I'd say we all did," Naruto replied, his arm around Hinata's shoulders. Considering the alternative was total dimensional collapse. The crystalline window that had replaced the portal expanded, growing to the size of a doorway. Through it, Percy could see Camp Half-Blood on one side and what must be Konoha on the other, the two realities meeting in a surprisingly harmonious blend. "This is your way home," Kalina explained. "The first of many stable crossings that will form between your worlds." Percy turned to Naruto, extending his hand once more. "Guess this means we'll be seeing each other again." Quote. The shinobi clasped his hand firmly, the identical marks on their palms briefly glowing upon contact. "Count on it. Next time, I'll show you around Ichiraku ramen, best food in any dimension. And I'll introduce you to blue cookies," Percy countered with a grin. As the temple faded around them, the group moved toward the dimensional doorway. Percy, Piper, and Reina positioned themselves on the Camp Half-Blood side, while Naruto, Hinata, and May stood before the Konoha entrance. "What about you?" Percy asked Kalina, who remained by the fading altar. "Where will you go?" The daughter of Nemesis smiled mysteriously. "Where I'm needed. Balance must be maintained, especially now that the Broken Crown knows its plans have been disrupted." "This is just the beginning, Percy Jackson." "It always is," he sighed, though not without a hint of anticipation. Life as a demigod was never boring. As the last vestiges of the divine temple disappeared, Y stepped through the doorway onto the familiar shores of Long Island Sound, Piper and Reina at his side. Across the dimensional threshold, Naruto raised a hand in farewell before turning toward the gates of Konoha with his companions. The doorway remained, smaller now but stable, a permanent reminder that their worlds were now connected in ways both wondrous and potentially dangerous. Percy looked down at the mark on his palm, thinking about the challenges that surely lay ahead. The Broken Crown, whatever it was, wouldn't give up easily. And the gods of both pantheons would undoubtedly have questions about how their carefully orchestrated competition had transformed into something entirely unexpected. But those were problems for another day. For now, Percy was content to stand on the beach of Camp Half-Blood, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed somehow richer than before, as if the controlled convergence had added depth to reality itself. "Percy." He turned to Annabeth running down the beach toward them, her blonde hair flying behind her. Despite their romantic relationship having ended, the sight of her still brought a smile to his face. She was his best friend, his strategist. The smartest person he knew. "What happened?" she demanded as she reached them. Chiron felt the divine energies shift, and Rachel started speaking prophecies in two different languages simultaneously. Percy exchanged glances with Piper and Reina, then looked back at the dimensional doorway that shimmered at the edge of the water. "It's a long story," he began. "But I think I just made a friend from another world." Across dimensions, In a realm that existed beyond both Greek and Shinto cosmology, a figure sat upon a throne made of shadows. 3 broken pieces of W. Had once been a crown floated before it, glowing with malevolent purpose. The champions have interfered, the figure observed, its voice echoing in the emptiness around it. They have reshaped the convergence. From the darkness, the 3-headed chimera materialized, diminished but not destroyed. They are marked now, it reported. Bound to the new order they created. Perfect, the figure replied. And though its face remained hidden in shadow, the satisfaction in its voice was unmistakable. They have made themselves into keys. And every key can be used to unlock that which should remain sealed. The broken pieces of the crown rotated slowly, aligning to reveal the gaps where missing fragments should fit. The hunt continues, the figure declared. Across all worlds now connected by their precious bridge. They believe they have won, but they have merely opened new paths for us to follow. The chimera bowed its 3 heads. What are your orders, Lord Chronometros? The figure leaned forward, finally revealing a face that somehow shifted between different appearances, never settling on one form for more than an instant. Find the daughter of Nemesis, it commanded. She understands more than she should. And prepare our forces. The champions must be tested properly now that they wear the mark. The broken crown pieces pulsed with anticipation, sensing the approach of a new phase in a game that had begun at the dawn of creation itself. After all, Chronometros mused, what is eternity but an endless game of patience? In the darkness surrounding the Shadow Throne, ancient entities stirred, awakening from slumber that had lasted millennia. The convergence had been altered but not stopped. And the broken crown would be whole again. One piece, one world, one reality at a time. Chapter 2 End.